Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 episode number 84 based on novel. So let's start. The ancient country of Yangfeng, Yenju. Yenju is the city of Emperor Yang, the first emperor of the ancient country of Yangfeng. There is also another palace here, Yanqiong Palace. Emperor Yang and Yanqiong are both god kings born in the earliest period of the entire royal family. They both walked similar paths, but Yanqiong has been trapped in the second level of god king and cannot go any further. Deep in the ancient Yanqiong Palace, a vast world was opened up. In the vast world, there are volcanoes everywhere in this world, and there are also howling black winds. The black wind swept countless magmas to the sky and scattered them wantonly. This Luohe. The entire world continent suddenly sat up straight. It looked like a humanoid monster with countless volcanoes on its back. Its nostrils breathed naturally, forming a violent black wind. Its golden eyes were even more terrifying. On the world membrane wall of this world, countless secret patterns are flowing, and invisible energy descends to cleanse the body of this huge strange beast again and again. Is a guest from the Chaos Realm worthy of entering the infinite space? The huge beast's single golden eye was filled with anger. Emperor! Emperor! The huge strange beast spoke directly. Countless secret codes flowed on the membrane wall of the world and naturally condensed into a figure, who was the contemporary emperor of the ancient country of Yangfeng. The emperor looked at the huge beast, sighed secretly, and then said, "Brother Yanqiong, what do you want to see me for?" "I met Luohe in the infinite space." The huge beast's voice was rumbling, and its might was many times stronger than that of the infinite space. How could he, a non-royal chaos realm, enter the infinite space? I suspect that Emperor Chu violated the rules set by the ancestor. You misunderstood Luohe. Di Fu, Emperor Fu, said he got the opportunity based on his own strength. How could he, a chaos realm transcendent, get a chance on his own? Said the huge beast. Your true body is imprisoned here, and you are concentrating on refining your primordial bloodline, and you know too little about the outside world. Emperor Fu said. I have been learning about the intelligence of the powerful outsiders. Is there anything I don't know? The huge beast retorted. Emperor Fu shook his head slightly. Luohe had fought for some rare treasures in the border area hundreds of centuries ago, forcing the Thunder Ancient Country to give up a quota to enter the infinite space in exchange. Luohe participated in the fight for a long time with the absolute strength of chaos transcendence. The Thunder Ancient Country could not bear it. Emperor Fu said. So he really relied on his own chance to win. The huge strange beast was silent for a moment. So that's how it is. The negotiation and transaction between the Thunder Ancient Country and Luophone was very secretive and had never been made public. Rely on yourself, the huge beast sneered. He was able to participate in the border dispute as a guest of our Yangfeng Ancient Country, and to make the Thunder Ancient Country suffer such a big loss. If he was an idle chaos realm outside the Yangfeng Ancient Country, he would not even be qualified to participate in the dispute. The huge beast said. If he gets such a benefit by relying on the status of a guest of our Yangfeng Ancient Country, he should give the quota to the royal family. At most, he can be rewarded. The emperor was silent for a moment, looking at this elder of the clan who was once quite wise and prestigious. Brother Yanqiong, have you not noticed that you are becoming more and more deeply influenced by the Han Yuan bloodline? The emperor said. I used the formation to help you suppress the pollution, but you are still so irritable. If there is no formation to assist you, you will probably lose control. The Yangfeng Ancient Country claims to the outside world that those who practice the Han Yuan bloodline are not out of control, but in fact, those who fail to reach a sufficient level of clarity will never be released. I am very sober. The huge beast looked at Emperor Fu. We are the royal family. We are so powerful that we occupy the best resources of the origin continent. We are very kind to allow the guests to exchange for inheritance resources. We also give them such freedom. In my opinion, the guests should obey the orders of our royal family when they enter the treasure land. Ordinary guest officials have enough freedom. Emperor Fu said. You should know that the guest official system was established by the ancestor. Once it's set by the ancestor, it must not be changed. The rules set by the ancestor countless years ago are always right? The huge monster was furious. The emperor's eyes turned cold. The huge monster was startled and realized that it had been reckless. Emperor, I helped you before. The huge monster looked at Emperor. Brother Yanqiong, I have always remembered your kindness, so I have been helping you. Di Fu said. I helped you build this world, I gave you many treasures and resources, and I always hoped that you could stay sober. I also need. The huge monster was about to speak. You already owe the tribe a lot. The emperor denied. You borrowed a huge amount of resources to impact the level of the emperor. But you failed, and you can't repay the current resource debt. And you keep asking for more. Brother Yanqiong, you should understand. The royal family is not just you, and it is impossible to give you all the resources. Are you willing to give it to Luo He and his guests? Are you not willing to give it to me? The huge beast was unwilling and angry. Being imprisoned forever was naturally uncomfortable. You owe the tribe a lot. Di Fu said. And the guests like Luo He are exchanged according to their merits, and they don't owe the tribe anything. I remind you again that the guest official system was established by the two ancestors. You are absolutely not allowed to question it. The emperor looked at the huge beast. You should also understand that in the eyes of the ancestors, your life and death are probably no different from the life and death of a guest official. The huge monster became more and more angry. Of course he knew. The royal families fought in the origin continent and some god kings fell, but the ancestor did not intervene at all. Refine your mind well. You can ask Emperor Mo for advice more often. If your mind and will can catch up with Emperor Moth by 20% or 30%, you would have been able to suppress this pollution, stay absolutely sober, and become a new emperor. Emperor Fu said. In the entire origin continent, in this reincarnation era, Emperor Mo ranks first in mind and will. It's not shameful to bow down in front of him. I have already bowed my head and asked him for advice. The huge beast became more and more crazy. But he humiliated me again and again, asking me to serve him, to be his follower, to be his gatekeeper. How can I endure it? You also humiliated him before, said the emperor. He was weak at that time, said the huge monster. In his opinion, you are weak now, said the emperor. Reflect on this carefully. In my opinion, your only chance to become an emperor is to ask the Emperor Mo for advice. After saying this, the emperor disappeared. Ask him for advice? Even if I am imprisoned forever, or even disappear in the future, I will never be humiliated by him again. The huge monster became more and more crazy. Emperor is in the world he created. The royal family, who have been favored too much by the first ancestor, still feel that they are not getting enough. They even want to take away the pitiful little given to the guest officials. The emperor shook his head gently. This group of fools, do they really think that the first ancestor cares about them? The ancestor was born several reincarnation eras ago. How much affection can there be between two ethnic groups separated by several reincarnation eras? The emperor shook his head slightly. Treasure land, infinite space. Luo Feng didn't care about the royal family's tyranny and would just keep his distance from them. Fortunately, we are in infinite space, and the difference in strength between everyone is not that big. If it were in the outside world, I'm afraid he would just slap me with his palm. Luo Feng thought with a smile. According to his intelligence, God King Yanqiong is a very ancient God King of the second level. It is said that he has also turned to cultivating the Han Yuan bloodline. Combined with the resources, weapons, and secret treasures of the royal family, his strength is unimaginable. However, God King Yanqiong is very low-key in the origin continent and rarely shows up. Many ancient beings are hard to come across in the outside world, but you can encounter quite a few of them in infinite space. Luo Feng also thinks infinite space is very interesting. In the infinite space, everyone is given an ordinary God King level body. Want a stronger body? You need to open up your own path to practice, but so far in the infinite space, I have never heard of anyone opening up a path to reach the second level of God King. Therefore, everyone's physical body is generally at the first level of the Divine King realm. Only the mind and will may be quite different. The mind and will of Emperor Ming is truly terrifying. Luo Feng could not help but think of Emperor Ming. After being in the infinite space for so long, the mind and will of Emperor Ming was the only thing he was sure was absolutely beyond the ultimate realm of the God King. It is so vast and completely superior, that is a qualitative difference. Luo Feng suddenly sensed a spiritual creature in front of him. Lucky, I found one. Luo Feng had 9 clones who were investigating separately, and they went to wherever was remote. He was not tired. As long as he discovered a spiritual creature, he would immediately arrange a clone to occupy the area. If one avatar only occupied one spiritual creature, it would not attract the attention of the big forces. But in fact, when Luo Feng's multiple avatars scattered around are added together, the total number of spiritual creatures they occupied is quite high. Of course, this kind of thing can only be done if you have many clones. In infinite space, there are very few newly opened roads that can use clones. In the eastern region, inside a magnificent ancient palace, a woman in green was sitting there, and a vast formation naturally appeared in the palace, with countless secret patterns flowing in the formation, which was constantly changing. The emperor is truly amazing. He can reach the level of an emperor simply by relying on the formation. I am still far inferior to him. The green-clothed woman exclaimed. She suddenly looked at one of the changing secret patterns in the formation. Oh? This part of the secret has finally been deduced. The Wuxiang God King shouted Luo his name in the palace, and just happened to disappear from the infinite space. His disappearance is related to Luo He. The Wu Bian of the Shadow Heaven realm died in battle, and the cause of death was also Luo He. The Lord of Shadow Heaven actually endured it? There was no follow-up major movement? This Luo He is unusual. The woman in green observed the formation. She could use the formation to reflect many traces of the origin continent and deduce them by the formation, and know many secrets. The more traces of the world she reflected, the more accurate her deduction would be. Perhaps I can invite him to join my side? An idea came to the woman in green, and she immediately deduced with the formation. She saw the formation reflecting the world, just like the future evolution of the world. Although I can't see it clearly, it seems to be a good decision. This Luo He seems to be favored by the supreme rule. The green-clothed woman was a little surprised. She had long known that the supreme rule also had preferences. The more dazzling and brilliant the practitioner, the more favored he would be. Even like the world beasts, they are born to be favored and can smoothly reach the ultimate realm of the God King. The more they destroy and devour, the faster they grow. Ordinary practitioners are all ordinary at the beginning, but gradually the outstanding ones will be selected among them. Since he is favored by the supreme rules, he must be invited. The woman in green had a thought in her mind. While she was still in the same place, a thought had already descended upon Xiangjie city of the ancient country of Yangfeng. Inside Xiangjie city, everything became grey, and countless creatures lost their breath of life, living like puppets. The woman in blue is the only color in this world. She walks in this city, observing everything carefully. Although I have learned a lot of information about Luo He, it is still clearer to see it with my own eyes. The woman in green walked to the garrison and was a little surprised. This Luo He's life force is really well contained. I walked over and couldn't see any trace of him in the past. A Chaos Realm Transcendent is more capable of controlling the life force than many divine kings of the first level. The green-clothed woman exclaimed. The origin continent does have some ability to peek into the past, but it is relatively easy to peek into the past of ordinary people, and the stronger the person, the more difficult it becomes. The woman in green can observe most of the first-level God Kings. Call. The surrounding space and time are distorted. The woman in green instantly returned to the present from the past, and everything around her regained color and became vivid. This timeline was the timeline where countless creatures truly existed. Great Sage Luo He. The woman in green stood outside the garrison and spoke with a smile. Her voice naturally traveled inside, and the guards at the door of the garrison could not see the woman in green in front of them at all. Inside the garrison, Luo Feng was drinking and chatting with Morosa, who was enjoying himself after having just finished digesting the corpse of the God King. Great sage Luo He. The voice sounded around. Huh? Luo Feng and Morosa were both startled. It was only at this moment that they noticed the woman in green outside the garrison. Morosa was secretly shocked and said in a voice transmission, "Master, I can easily sense the vast area around Xiangjia city. I should be able to sense any strong person approaching me. But I didn't even notice this person. After all, she is the Queen of Wind City in the eastern region." Luo Feng noticed the blue-clothed woman in the garrison at this moment. Seeing her appearance, he naturally knew her identity. Her strength should be close to that of the peak beast. Morosa transmitted telepathically. Almost. Luo Feng also guessed, "You leave first, I'll go see her." Luo Feng went to the gate of the garrison in person. The guard at the door also couldn't see Luo Feng. Luo Feng walked outside the door and looked at the woman in green standing outside. She seemed to be standing there, but she was detached from the whole world. Luo He, greets to the Queen of Fengju. Luo Feng bowed slightly. He was able to create his own secret technique and become the absolute number one in the Chaos Realm. The green-clothed woman looked at Luo Feng and smiled in admiration. He is truly extraordinary. Such a powerful young man has not appeared in the Origin continent for a long time. Luo Feng laughed and said, "No matter how powerful he is only in the Chaos Realm." "Would you like me to come in and sit down?" the woman in green said with a smile. "Please." Luo Feng immediately led the way. As the Queen of Fengju was so friendly, Luo Feng naturally responded in a friendly manner. In the garrison, in a reception pavilion, the two parties sat opposite each other, and Luo Feng personally poured wine for the other party. The Queen of Fengju is one of the 12 emperors of the indigenous people of the Dongji territory. Her strength is even more terrifying. Luo Feng certainly knew the other party's intelligence. In the earliest days of the Origin continent, the indigenous people occupied most of the Origin continent. The natives ruled the continent of Origin. At that time, the ethnic groups of the two ancient countries were still very sparse, and they only occupied a very remote and small area. At that time, the natives who ruled the Origin continent also had a being called God Emperor. There were a total of 12 God Emperors. At that time, the creatures of the Origin continent were generally very weak, and there were very few practitioners from the 3,000 original universes who had passed through the reincarnation and came to the Origin continent. Judging from their current strength, these 12 divine emperors have just become divine kings. But, over the long years, the indigenous people's territories had been greatly compressed, and they all huddled in the East Pole region. The 12 emperors at that time were able to become divine kings in a short period of time in the early days, and now they are all at the second level of divine king. Among them, the Queen of Wind City is the most unfathomable. On the Origin continent, there are only a handful of people who are at the second level of the Divine King realm and can fight against the emperors and monarchs. The Queen of Wind City is one of them. An ordinary god king at the second level is vulnerable in front of the emperor or the monarch, and his true body would be destroyed in a single encounter. But the Queen of Fengju is an existence not much different from the emperor and the monarch. Morosa thought, the Queen of Wind City should be close to the top beast level. According to the intelligence, this Queen of Wind City has cultivated the Great Tao of the origin of the world and the Great Tao of the origin of time to the second level of the Divine King realm. The inheritance of her cultivation is unknown. Luo Feng sighed. Perfect grade inheritance and special grade inheritance are not difficult to obtain with the extraordinary talent of the Queen of Wind City. Moreover, the natives of the eastern region also have a mysterious ancestor behind them. That ancestor protects the entire natives and naturally values the most talented Queen of Fengju. One can imagine the status of the Queen of Wind City in the Origin continent. Even though Luo Feng had become a divine king, the gap between him and the other party was still very large. Not to mention that he was only in the Chaos realm now. Luo Feng was somewhat surprised that the other party was still so friendly. Luo He, I came here to invite you to join the force I founded, Samsara building. The green-clothed woman looked at Luo Feng. Although this Samsara building was founded by me, all members are equal. I believe you have heard about the information about the Samsara building. Samsara Tower? Of course Luo Feng had heard of it. The Samsara Tower is a relatively small force, much smaller than the Two Realms Palace. Because every official member of the Samsara building was personally selected and invited by the Queen of Fengju, their numbers are naturally scarce. However, the reputation of the Samsara Tower is comparable to that of the Two Realms Palace, the Wanfao Tower, and the Time and Space Boat. We have very few members in the Samsara building, said the woman in green, but each of them is extraordinary. Am I qualified to enter the Samsara building? Luo Feng asked. If I go in by myself, I'm afraid I'll be the one with the lowest strength. Don't underestimate yourself. The green-clothed woman looked at Luo Feng and said, You are a very remarkable practitioner in the entire origin continent. Oh? Luo Feng was shocked. Luo Feng certainly knew that he was special. He had enslaved a world beast. In the future, with a world beast at the ultimate level of God King, he could train a powerful army and establish a first-class force. Moreover, Luo Feng himself is a perfect divine body that has never appeared in the origin continent. His small universe is also beyond that of any cultivator. Compared with these two, the art of Li Yuan is actually inferior. After all, there are far more people than just Luo Feng who have inherited Yuan. Luo Feng was well aware of his own peculiarity, but he had always kept it secret. Now, the Queen of Fengju is so optimistic about herself. But no matter how talented you are, you still need resources to cultivate, the green-clothed woman said, such as top-notch inheritance and various rare treasures to assist you. Luo Feng agreed. Whether it was 8 tribulations life form, 72 blades of destruction, or the more precious inheritance, world life form, in the infinite space, they were of great help to him. The inheritance you are in contact with now should only be the inheritance of the first level of the Divine King. The green-clothed woman said, as you go further, the more precious inheritance will be restricted. Some rare treasures and some powerful Han Yuan bloodlines are even harder to come by. It is even more difficult to obtain the complete inheritance left by Yuan. A weapon that surpasses the Divine King realm is enough to start a war between the two ancient nations. The woman in green looked at Luo Feng and said, Do you think you can get it just because you have a high talent? You don't feel it strongly now. You can still fight for some marginal resources left by Yuan. The more precious the resources are, in the end, you won't even be qualified to fight for them. Luo Feng was silent. Master Di Chu also admitted some of it. Have you heard of the God King of Lihe? The woman in green looked at Luo Feng. Luo Feng was stunned. You haven't heard of it, right? The green-clothed woman laughed. The Flame Wind Guild and the Thunder Chamber of Commerce will not spread this kind of information, and they will even try every means to cover it up. Divine King Lihe was a divine king who had fully joined the ancient Flame Wind country. He had even cultivated to the second stage of Divine King. The green-clothed woman said, he worked diligently and tirelessly for the ancient Flame Wind country. Even though the resources obtained by the royal family far exceed his, he did not care. He was very satisfied. He had a wife, 3 sons and 2 daughters. He doesn't want to get involved in too many disputes. He just wanted to educate his children and practice hard. He believed that he could reach a higher level by practicing hard. The woman in green said, he was grateful for the help of his master Emperor Xian. But he was so talented that he managed to successfully refine a powerful secret treasure that Yuan left behind on the origin continent. It was a weapon secret treasure that far exceeded the Divine King realm. With this secret treasure, he, the Divine King of the second level, was capable of fighting against the Emperor and the Monarch. The woman in green looked at Luo Feng. But what's next? He used this weapon secret treasure once when he was carrying out the mission of Yangfeng ancient country. He only used it once. The 3 emperors attacked at the same time. Threatened him to hand over the secret treasure, or else they would slaughter his wife, children, and his entire clan. The woman in green looked at Luo Feng. He was used to giving in and enduring. He still endured it and handed over the secret treasure. Luo Feng sighed secretly. When it was handed over, the green-clothed woman laughed. The three emperors took action. His wives and children, his clansmen, and even all the living beings in the entire city. All were slaughtered, not a single one was spared. The Leher God King was also killed. The green-clothed woman smiled. His master, Di Xian, only found out about this later. But it was too late. Fortunately, the Leher God King was strong enough, and before he was killed, he had time to perform the secret method of reincarnation, and he was reincarnated. The green-clothed woman said, but when the emperor took action, none of his wife, children, and his clansmen had time to reincarnate. After the reincarnation of Leher Divine King, his current name is Guishu Emperor. The green-clothed woman looked at Luo Feng. Luo Feng was shocked. Emperor Guishu? It turned out to be him. Guishu Emperor, who called himself Emperor, was slightly less powerful than the Emperor. But he fought again and again as if he had a blood feud with the royal family of the ancient Yangfeng Kingdom, and never gave up. There were as many as 7 or 8 god kings of the ancient Yangfeng Kingdom who died at the hands of Emperor Guishu. Emperor Guishu is a member of my Samsara building. The green-clothed woman said, I built the Samsara building in the hope that everyone can be companions, support each other, and jump out of this Samsara era. And I think you are also qualified to become a formal member of my Samsara building. There are a total of 8 members in the Samsara building so far. The woman in green looked at Luo Feng. You are the 9th member I have chosen, and the only Chaos Realm member I have invited so far. This video will end here.